Tractate Sanhedrin, page 36. As we said in the introduction, this chapter dealing with the procedure of the court, the whole dual process and the procedure, and we explain based on the Mishnah and here in the Gemara that there are 10 differences between the capital law and monetary law. So when we talk about court procedures, there are many questions, such as those days they used to sit in a half cycle and the head of the court was in the middle. Should he have the great honor to be the beginner, the first one to speak? Why? Because later on you see it in certain cases, especially capital law, people intimidated by his opinion and they don't feel comfortable to acquit him. Another important subject we're going to speak about leadership. Leadership meaning who is the one who befit to be a rabbinic judge and what exactly the expectations and when he should be humble and when he should not. You see a lot of nuances. We're going to learn as a side note about the great Rabbeinu Gershom, the great Ashkenazic rabbi of the 11th century, that was called Me'or HaGolah, the illuminate rabbi of exile. Why you call him that name? He's the one who put the famous rabbinic enactment not to marry more than one wife or not to get divorced against her will, meaning you have to have the wife consent in order to get divorced. He is the one who put it upon the Ashkenazic community. We're going to discuss, since we talk about court procedure, also situations such as father-son, they're allowed to reside in the court, teacher and students, and more similar, almost relative people, how far you go with that. I remember, just a side note, as in Maryland I serve on the different non-profit organizations board, and always a question like that came up. Student, teacher, husband, wife, father, son. When you want people who reside in a powerful job or powerful board, if you allow such a thing to happen. So again, we are back here at the time of the Talmud, and we are in Tractate Sanhedrin, page 36, and we start on the top of the page, 13 lines from the top of the page. Dinei mamonot hatmeot v'tarot. They said the same way as we have a mandatory disputation, you start from the greatest judge. When it's come to issue of ritual purity and impurity, you go by the greatest judge and down the line. I was there with Rabbi Nasi and they start with me first. So we have to know that this based on different sugya that's in the Gemara in Tractate Gittin, page 25, is the story of Sikrins, the people, idol worshipper, they forced people out of their land. It was 12 months period of crisis. Meanwhile, they sold it to someone else and he need to sell it back. The whole story is that when the guy get it back, is 25% get off the price. So in short, in that manner, he was the first one to speak. By the way, the same sugya, as we discussed today, the same subject, you see it in Tractate Gittin, page 59, and Moshe Yosef elaborates, and he said that the whole concept of capital law versus monetary law is the idea of intimidation. When you have a supreme judge, the chief, speaks first, then everyone intimidated by his opinion. That's applied to capital law. When it's come to a monetary law, you don't have that concern. You just give him a respect as the head court to have the opportunity to speak first. So in that sense, we see here a big differentiation between capital law and monetary law. And as we said, you see more on that in Tractate Gittin, page 59. At that time, they start the whole way. As we said earlier, it was a half cycle. And because it was a half cycle, they sitting with the least person in a sense of honor, which is the person who sit in the side bench. So you don't start with the greatest person in the court. Tosfot in Gittin 59 elaborates on that. We just give you the abbreviation. There is a book called Kosei Shuot. He is the grandfather of the Khatam Sofer, great Hungarian rabbi. And he elaborated and he said, look, when it's come to a matter of humbleness, we understand that Rabbi in his time was a great humble man, but should not take it in the wrong way, because sometimes people see that a person is too humble and they take advantage of him. It's a matter of fact, the story about the Shoel v'Meshiv, one of the great rabbis that wrote a responsa called Shoel v'Meshiv. Local community, small community rabbi came to him and he said, "Oh, I don't understand this sugya, it's so hard, so complicated." The rabbi said, "I also have issues of many sugyot." So the Shoel v'Meshiv said to him, "Be careful what you said, because people sometimes when they hear that, especially people who are not educated, they take advantage, try to control you." So the idea of humbleness is always has to be in such a balance. That's the key point in the book called Kos Yeshuot. ואמר רבא ברד רבא ויתם רבי הלל ברד רבי ולס מלמות משה עבד רבי לא מצינו תורה גדולה במקום אחד. Here, in a sense, they tried to make a comparison between Moses to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Moses not only was a great leader, but also the great Torah scholar. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the one who wrote the Mishnah, the world teaching, the main author. So he was also have these two tremendous traits, which is Torah scholar and the leader of the community. Now the Gemara going to challenge. You mean to say between Moses to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is so many years in between, 40 generations, and you mean to say that there's no other great leaders that have these two components of leadership and great Torah scholarship? V'lo v'hava v'Yoshua. We know the student of Moses was Joshua, was a great man of Torah. So they said, no, Hava El-Azar. It was El-Azar, the high priest, that was a great man of scholarship. So it means that Joshua didn't have both. It was another one comparable to him. So they said, V'hava Pinchas. It was a great man, we know, by the high priest Pinchas. So they said, Havu Zkenim. Zkenim in that sense is the judges that judge the Jewish people, like Ivtzan, was actually Boaz, Atniel ben Knaz, and others. So those judges that they live in that time, they are basically comparable to others. That's the Gemara in Bava Batra, page 91, which we study. It says V'hava Shaul. We know that King Saul, as the Gemara in Eruvin 53 said, Rashi mentioned here, he was the greatest scholar at that time. He just didn't teach people, but so they said Hava Shmuel Navi. It was a great prophet Samuel that was again comfortable to Saul, and Yad said that in a sense, the moment you have the two, it's already not one that have the two component alone. V'hanach nafshei, he passed away. So during the time, so they said Kulu shnaya kamrin. This is a statement you're going to hear several times, that we talk about all the years that he was the leader of the Jewish people. Ve'adar David, we know King David. Hava Ira Yairi. Ira Yairi was the teacher of King David, which David basically subordinated to him because of his knowledge. So as much as he was a king, David, but Ira, in a sense, was his teacher. So they said, Va'anach nafshei, passed away. So they said the same answer, Kulosh Ne'en. That's all the years that he was the leader of the Jewish people. Ve'ava Shlomo, we know King Solomon, that was not only the king of Israel, but also the man of great knowledge of Torah. So Hava Shim'i ben Gera. Shim'i ben Gera was also a great man of knowledge of Torah. Rashi said, you see it also in Maharam, he brought 1,000 people to greet King David, but he said it wasn't just 1,000 people, it was students. That's the way Rashi explained in the second book of Samuel, chapter 19. So the question is, V'hakatlei, we read the story in the Tanakh that King Solomon killed him, basically follow his father's order to kill him, because he basically was rebel against King David in chapter 2 in the book of Kings. So the answer is Kulo Shnei Ka'amrinan. He did it during the years that he was the leader of the Jewish people, meaning at the beginning of his reign, Shim'i was there. So the Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said the question, Shim'i ben Gera, Rosh Sanhedrin, what exactly happened? So he explained that Shim'i ben Gera was basically in order to stay in Jerusalem, and Solomon said to him, you cannot leave the city. So the moment you put a person in such a situation, you know that eventually you're going to violate the rules and do which he did, and that's causing the kind of the pretext for Solomon to get rid of him. We know that's we're going to study Be'ezrat Hashem at the very end of this beautiful tractate about King Chizkiah, that on page 94b, he was the teacher of the Jewish people in abundance. So why we don't mention Hava Shevna is another name, that his yeshiva was greater than yeshiva of Chizkiah. That's Rashi said based on what we studied on page 26. Veha Iktil, Shevna was killed by Sanherib, the king of Assyrian. Kulu Shnei Kamrin. The same answer, we talk about the reign, the years that he was the leader in the Jewish people. So it's Hava Ezra, we know Ezra the scribe, we know that he was not only a great man and a great leader, but a great Torah scholar. He was really almost like a Messiah in this time, that he caused people to change all the way of life, and he was tremendous influence for the Jewish people, in addition for being a high priest. So they said, Nehemiah ben Chachaliah, as we said in the book of Nehemiah chapter 5, Yad Ramah elaborates that he was in a way equivalent to Ezra, not only in help in administration, but also in knowledge and more. So they said, אמר רבא ברבא ואני אומר ממות רבי אשי לא מצאנו תורה וגדולה במקום אחד. We have three components. We have Mikra, we have Mishnah, we have Talmud. We have the written Torah, oral Torah, which is part of that is the Mishnah, part of that is the Talmud. So he said, from time of Moses we have up to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but he said, from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi until the completion of the Talmud, it was Rav Ashi that no one have that level of knowledge. Obviously, there is much to discuss. Just give you you see in Yun Yaakov and Torat Chaim explain more, but the idea is Velo va'ava Huna bar Natan. Huna bar Natan is considered one of the greatest scholar at that time, Tosfot, but the idea is that he was great. Huna bar Natan michafa Rakayif Rav Ashi. So said Huna bar Natan was basically subordinate to Rav Ashi. So it means Rav Ashi was the greatest one. That's the just to share with you a story about the Ostrotza. Ostrotza was the great Hasidic Rebbe. He had his own Rebbe. So one time he asked him to be a co-signer of 100 signature of rabbis that needed in a case that wife refused to accept the get. So it's called Heter Mea Rabbanim. But the Ostrotza wasn't comfortable, so he said to his Rebbe, you know, we call Rabbeinu Gershon Me'or HaGolah. We call the great 11th century Rabbi Gershon among the Ashkenazi community Me'or HaGolah, the light, the luminary of the exile. Why you call him that name? So he explained that he made two important enactments, two important decrees at that time, 11th century. One, a person cannot marry in Ashkenazi community more than one wife. Two, a person cannot forcefully give his wife get. She needs to be consent to accept the get. So he said, look, in that sense, if we use a euphemism, or metaphorically, you can say that the Song of Songs speak about God and the Jewish people as husband and wife. So in that sense, since Rabbeinu Gershom came in, he basically changed the whole structure of relationship between God and us, meaning that in that sense, God cannot divorce us just because he's unhappy with us, and even he sent us to exile. It's still a chance for him to have us back, because you cannot divorce against the will, and we do not accept it. So in that sense, we call him Me'or HaGolah, the light of exile, because he was one who invented. So in short, the Ostrotza said, if he invented such a thing, who am I to sign something that against his will? Anyway, so you see here, the nefashot matchilim min hatzad, which is, as we explained earlier, you have the court session, they commence in a half cycle, the head is in the middle, and you start with the least judge on a bench, which is to the side. How do you know? We derive from the pasuk in the book of Shemot, chapter 23, Lo taneh al riv, lo taneh al rav, which means do not dispute it. In that sense, you're using the distinction in the letters that you shall not dispute it, the greatest of the judges. You ask him first, and therefore no one else can dispute him. Rabbi Babachana amar Rabbi Yochanan mehacha, ואומר דוד לאנשיו חרגו איש חרבו והרגו איש חרבו והרגו גם דוד חרבו. So you derive from that King David wasn't the first one. You see here that King David was the last one to do it. So that's the way Tosfot said. Tosfot here brought the Gemara in Megillah 14b, that dealing with the whole idea of a halanat din, postponing the judgment, why you treat it that way. There is no Yehuda, but it's a book called Gemarrah Rabbi Weisblum try to elaborate on that, why you need to bring psukim, sentences from the Nevi'im, while you have it in the Torah. So he explained it, and I saw it later on in most recent rabbi, a great rabbi in Israel. His name is Rab David Povarsky. He's one of the Rosh Yeshiva of Ponevezh, which is a luminary yeshiva in Bnei Brak. So he said that the whole idea of King David reside as a judge, it's not because his personal he can forgive, but he said itchatzef lamalchut, he was rude against the kingdom. And that's obvious. If you have a person who is a enemy, you cannot sit and reside as a judge. But King David, since it wasn't personal, but it was him as the king, so therefore he can take it differently. Bring a source from Tosfot on page 18, Koshu v'Koshu. So that's the whole idea of Mored b'Malchut. Also, people expresses their feeling of anger and needs to punish that fellow. But as you see, when it's come to capital law, you always start from the lowest and going high. Otherwise, as we said, people are intimidated by the supreme judge and they have a hard time to dispute him. A teacher can reside with a student and study together the capital law of him, and the student can, particularly in a deliberation, and serve as one of the judges. So, meitivei hataharot ve'atmeot, so all this idea of discussion among issues of purity and impurity, you have the teacher and his students, you have father and his sons, so you treat it as two separate scholars. So when it's come to capital law, monetary law, and law that deserve to get the lashes, so it said Kiddush HaChodesh v'Ibur Shana, sanctification of the new month, make the year a leap year. So father and son, teacher and his students, you treat it as one, because we assume that the other one is basically an echo of the teacher, is not really independent opinion. Is Aruch Laner, is a Tosfot that elaborates on that and tells us that only Kiddush HaChodesh and Kiddush HaShana, it's a difference that your father and son can go and reside together. Page 36b, כי כאמר רב, כגון רב כהנא ורב אסי, דלגמרי רב אבו צריכה ולספרד רב לא אבו צריכה. Here he talk about the exception. This is name of two rabbis, name Rav Kahana and Rav Asi. They need to have the lineage, the tradition, and as far as logical reasoning, they don't. The Ramah elaborate and he said, if you need a proof for that, you see the distinction from the fact that it was a Sanhedrin at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, although he taught all its members they could serve on the rabbinic court as they were capable of conducting their own analysis. It's always mindset of the Gdolei Israel, the greatest rabbis, that when their teacher no longer among the living, the story goes that they always close their eyes and think, if my Rebbe was here, how he rules. One of the Hasidic story I heard once from Rabbi Strom, he talked about the rabbi of Oshpitzin. So the rabbi of Oshpitzin, he was with his students, have a court session of eduyot, they give a testimony. So someone complained to the Tzanzer Rebbe, to the Divrei Chaim, how come he does that? So he explains that, number one, b'diavad it's okay, but he said even the Chatchila, not only from the hindsight, but it's okay, he explained, because remember early the Gemara that we study about Shlosha Yoshvei Kranot. You have three people who are uneducated, you assume that one of them is Gamir v'Savar, that is knowledgeable. So here you have the great Ushpitzin Rav, that even you said that the other two students are not, but here he is Gamar v'Savar. So for sure, when it's come to hear עדות, it's okay. אמר רבי אבאו 10 דברים יש במיני ממונות לדיני נפשות וכולן נוהגים בשור הנסכל חוץ מ-23. So as we said, you have 10 important ways that the cases of mandatory law are different from the capital law that we taught at the beginning of this chapter, and none of them is practiced with regard to court hearing when it's come to ox that been stoned, exempt for the requirement for animal to be judged by 23 judges, like the case of the capital law. So the rabbis explain, we see it in the Mefarshim, that it's not literal evion, but here it's speak about a person who gets punishment for a sin that he did. So in that sense, he is called indigent. משפט אביונך היה תמתה, אבל תמתה, משפט שורה נסקל, obviously you differentiate between oxen that get a capital punishment versus human. 10 עד 9, if you check it, it's not 10, it's 9. So you said ה10 קטנים. So the enforcing goes to the whole list that applies specifically on the capital punishment. You see in the Gemara the list of 10 important things, such as the court, the court judges has to be 23. They always start with a positive. Judges start positive, cannot go back negative. Students are limited at only positive, and more. They do it during the day. 10. So משום דאין הכל כשרים 23 חדאי. So תורת חיים said that only the last one is incorporated with all האיכא אחריתה. דקתן מושבים בסנהדרין זקן וסריס ומי שאין לו בנים. You don't reside among the Sanhedrin, a person in advanced age, a person who is castorized, and someone who has no children. So the Rashba explained that what do you mean if you tell someone with no children, so why you need to speak about castorized? So he said it was a person that had children, then he was castorized, so he cannot fulfill the idea of vehetzilu. But anyway, Rabbi Yehuda mosif af achzari, a cruel person, v'chilofem b'mesit, one who instigated people to worship idol. The Rahman amar v'lo tachmol v'lo tchaseh alav. So the whole idea, you see it many times when it's come to show compassion. When I remember years back when I was in yeshiva, they asked that question. Someone the mashgiach wants to throw out students. So the head of the yeshiva said to him, "Look, if it was your son, you treated him the same way as you treated a stranger. This is a self-search. You have to think always before you make decision based on this Gemara. הכל כשרים לדון דיני ממונות, הכל לעטוי ימי, אמר רב יהודה לעטוי ממזר." So someone who's an illegitimate child, it's a different story usually, but in this time to be a judge, reside over monetary disputation, he can reside. הטעם אחד הזמנה, we learn the Gemara Tractate Nida, page 49b. כל הראוי לדין נפשות ראוי לדין נאמנות, ויש ראוי לדין נאמנות ואין ראוי לדין נפשות. So obviously someone who's capable for capital law, he is also capable to do monetary law, but the other way around is not. Someone who's capable for monetary law is not necessarily approved for capital law. That mamzer is only capital, only monetary law is capable to judge. So therefore you need both. So Tosfot here, based on the Gemara in Yevamot, page 102, you see a discussion that he basically can judge only other. You see it also in the Rambam. The Rambam said in the Ilchot Sanhedrin chapter 2. You see it also in the Choshen Mishpat chapter 7. It says all men born Jewish are fit to judge cases of monetary law, including a son of a convert. Convert can judge the case of another convert. Mamzer is fit to judge cases of monetary law, and even all the three judges may be mamzerim, all the three. So is the Nudab Yudah and Khatam Sofer, they have a discussion over Rechavam. We know that Rechavam was King Solomon's son, grandson of King David. So they said that his mother was Naama Ammonit. How come? We said that's a famous pasuk, Mikerev Achecha. So the Nudab Yudah have two explanations. One, he said that it's not his mother, it's only descendants of Ammonim. Or he said that if it's Yerusha, if it's not appointed king, but someone who inherited, like Rehovam, it's different. Anyway, ואין הכל כשרים לדון דיני הנפשות, מה איתם עד רב יוסף, כשם שבדין מנוקים בצדק, כך מנוקים מכל מום, זה no blemish, וכבוד אמר מאמר, כולך יפרתי, ומום אין בך. So the Gemara said, ודילמה מום ממש, you may say that that's applied to a serious physical blemish. אמר רבך בעקוב, אמר קרא, והתייצבו שם ממך בדומים לך. So the Gemara said, ודילמה הטעם משום שכינה, אלא אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק, אמר קרב ונשאו איתך. The Torah said in the book of Shemot, chapter 18, they should carry with you, which means איתך, בדומין לך להבד. They should be similar to you, which means they have to be without blemish. So here we talk about regular judges. The divine presence does not rest, and the teacher, all the member of the Sanhedrin, must be whole in body. And the pasuk from the Song of Songs teaches that they must have unflawed lineage as well. So that's bigly differentiate monetary law and capital law.